The Department of Health is now able to test for coronavirus here in Florida. Labs in Tampa, here, Jacksonville, and Miami can conduct the tests. This allows test results to be available within 24 to 48 hours. Currently, CDC is taking up to 5 days for results. Obviously, they have a lot of testing that they're having to do. We have an incident management team in place, and we're working in lockstep with the CDC, receiving multiple updates daily. Hundreds of dedicated DOH professionals are responding, including staff in Tallahassee Central Office and in each of our 67 county health departments. We've also engaged the medical community through correspondence and weekly calls and have established a DOH website related to COVID-19, www.floridahealth.gov/COVID-19. This is the best and most up-to-date source for information and guidance regarding the virus in Florida. State of Florida is fully committed to doing everything we can to respond to the COVID-19 virus. I have spoken with both Senate President Bill Galvano and Speaker Jose Oliva. I'm working with Dr. Rivkes and Dr. Robertson about any immediate funding that we may need, and mostly we're talking about personnel, and they were receptive to work with my office to make sure that the needs are met. So I would just tell people, the risk remains low. Please heed the advice of the CDC and local healthcare professionals. You hear some of the things about washing your hands and not touching your mouth and your nose and your eyes. I mean, that really is the best way to make precautions here. And I think that we're working diligently and Scott will go into a little bit more detail, I think, on some of the things that are be doing specifically. But our goal is to contain this and make sure we're ensuring public health.